Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. And today on the podcast, I want to talk about mom guilt, but specifically the type of guilt that shows up in the summer, not the school year type of guilt, because summer guilt is a little bit different than school year guilt. So in the school year, we feel bad, like our kids are watching a lot of TV, or we forgot permission slips, or we're not spending enough time with them. We have different kinds of guilt around the school year, but summer guilt is a little bit different because it's a little more emotional. It's like thinking, I have all this unstructured time, all this potential for connection and fun, and I'm still watching my kids melt down. I'm still watching them be grumpy. So I must be doing summer wrong. Like this shouldn't be happening, right? If you're thinking this, my kids are bored and they're complaining all the time and they're fighting and they're grumpy, that you might be thinking, I must be doing something wrong. This should be easier. And because it's not easier, then something is wrong with me. And I want to challenge that whole premise today because I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to make summer perfect. And it's actually backfiring, not just on us because we feel burned out, but also on our kids. So let's get into it. I think a lot of us start the summer with this lie, or maybe it's a fantasy that summer is going to be the season where everyone is relaxed. There's going to be slower mornings and more connection and fewer schedules and more joy. And the truth is that summer can bring more of those things, but somewhere along the way, a lot of us have picked up on an unspoken expectation that summer should also be smoother. That because there's no homework and no school drop-off stress, that the emotional dynamic in our house is supposed to be better. And really, it doesn't end up that way. A lot of us still have meltdowns. We still have kids who are grumpy. We still have kids who are saying that they're bored every 15 minutes. And that unstructured time actually creates more dysregulation and more big feelings and more problems in a family. So we think that, oh, this unstructured time is going to make us more relaxed. But really, it tends to make us more stressed. And we also end up spending a lot more time with our kids, and we don't have as much break from them. And so we end up feeling quite burned out in the summer, and then we make ourselves wrong for that. So the truth is that summer is more challenging for families. And I want you to feel okay with the fact that that's true and that's real for if that's happening to you, if you're getting to this end of July and you are feeling so burned out and making yourself wrong for that. I want to normalize, first of all, that the summer is more challenging. The other thing is that you are having a summer with your actual children. So meltdowns, moods, boredom, arguing, they're not a proof that something is broken in your family or that you have ruined the summer or that the summer is a problem. The truth is that meltdowns, grumpy moods, boredom, they're proof that your kids are kids and they're in a body and they have a nervous system and they're having a life. And that doesn't pause just because it's summer. So a kid having a hard moment on a beautiful sunny day, beach day, pool day, lake day, that's not a referendum on your parenting. It's just a hard moment. Having a beautiful day or a fun activity planned or a great experience, that does not mean that your child's going to be in a great mood. Your child is always learning how to be a human, how to be a person. So even if the circumstance is great, they may still be struggling with something internally. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with them. You have not done anything wrong. It's just part of being a kid or being a person, actually. We go through all the effort of getting the snack bag and getting the extra clothes and the sunblock and all of those, vacation plans or special going to the fair or going to the lake or going to the beach. Like you put in a lot of effort whenever you do an activity like that with your kids. And we are trying to make it fun, right? But there is another thing that's happening for us is that we are actually trying to be good moms. And I put that in quotation marks because there is a myth that there is a type of mom that is a good mom. And it's a cultural idea that a mother her worth is measured by how smooth she can make her children's experience. That if the day goes well, you did a good job. If the day goes sideways, then you must have made a mistake. You messed up the schedule, you messed up the snack, you were not calm, you didn't put the socks on properly. Remember, I talked about this with Dr. Angel Close, and like a few episodes ago. One of the things that stuck with me is how much of modern motherhood has become intensive. This idea that a good mother is endlessly available, endlessly resourced, and able to engineer her children's emotional experience so that they don't have bad feelings, that they don't have hard feelings. And then you add summer into that with this idea that we have to have curated photos of families on vacation, looking blissed out. It's easy to internalize that if I were doing this right, my kids would be happy right now. But being happy is not what childhood is. It's not even what being a person is. Kids are going to be bored. They're going to be grumpy. They're going to fight with their siblings. None of that means you failed to create the conditions for a good summer. It means that you have children, and children have big, unregulated nervous systems, and they're still under construction, right? Your kids are not done growing. Their bodies aren't done growing. That means their nervous systems are not done learning to regulate. I want you to think about good enough, like the good enough mom or the good enough summer. I want you to start to lower your expectations a little bit. Instead of thinking of things being perfect or things being great, even, I want you to start thinking about things being good enough. Like, can this summer be good enough? Can this car ride to camp be good enough? Your children, they don't need you to create some sort of perfect expectation. What they actually need from you is to be present with them when they have struggle, when they have a hard moment. They are looking for support from you, for emotional guidance and practical guidance. They are looking for modeling of how to pivot when you are having a rough day or rough experience. Your kids aren't looking for you to bulldoze the path and make it perfect and idyllic. Well, actually, maybe they are wanting that. But let me tell you that even if you even if your kids want you to make their life easy and perfect, if you try to do it, A, you're going to feel super bad because it's not possible. And B, you're not helping your kids grow in their own ability to self regulate, self soothe, self manage, to pivot from hard moments, to be able to overcome uncomfortable circumstances like boredom or frustration or sadness or any of that. So your job as a parent, it's not to create a frictionless childhood. Your job is to be there to help your children when the friction comes. So when your kid is bored on the porch and you don't go in and swoop in with activity, you're not being a bad mom. Okay, when your kids argue over whose turn is to go on the trampoline and you let them work it out instead of playing referee, it's not like neglect. It's what they're supposed to do. Your kids are supposed to have hard days, hard moments, conflict, and you are not there to smooth it out. So I want to make sure that you're not feeling like your job is to smooth out all the rough edges in your kid's life and create this picture perfect summer, picture perfect childhood, picture perfect life. When you do that, if you prevent boredom, if you diffuse every mood before it lands, if you solve all their sibling conflict, if you keep the whole day sort of emotionally tidy, you're not protecting your kid. You're quietly teaching them that they can't handle their own experience without you managing it for them. Think about it from your kid's perspective. If every time they're bored, you produce an activity, they don't learn that they're capable of generating their own ideas. If every time that they're grumpy, you rush to fix the mood, they don't learn that their moods were going to go, that their mood will pass and that they don't require rescuing. If every sibling squabble gets adult refereed, and you always work through every problem with them, they don't learn how to compromise and work together and create solutions on their own. Over time, if your kids have had an environment that's over managed, when they grow up, your kid might end up not trusting their own ability to cope. They may look outside of themselves for someone to fix that discomfort instead of looking inward and finding their own resources. I know that you want your kids to grow up to be emotionally healthy, and that means that they get to have hard times and boredom and frustration and annoyance and you telling them no and all of those different experiences. They are entitled to frustration and to struggle because with you as their mom, with you as their parent, you're going to help them overcome that struggle. And it's in that overcoming, in that kind of tension, that friction when they are struggling through, that's where growth happens. That's where they actually build something within them that they learn confidence, they learn emotional regulation, they learn emotional resilience. The When you are just good enough, when you create a slightly messy, occasionally grumpy summer, that is one that is actually helping your children grow and develop. So here's how I would reframe a few things for you if you are kind of like in burnout, if you're feeling really discouraged, if you are kind of done and you are feeling bad about yourself. I want you to think about these couple of turnarounds. The first is around meltdowns. So a meltdown is not a sign that you have done anything wrong or that there is anything wrong with your kid. It's their nervous system releasing some pressure. So your job isn't to prevent meltdowns or fix meltdowns instantaneously. It's to stay steady nearby, let them move through that big feeling cycle, help them come back to baseline. You are not failing if your kid melts down. Meltdowns and big feeling cycles do not mean that you have failed. What they mean is that your child is having a hard moment. And I'm going to tell you right now that in the summer, your kid is going to have more meltdowns because the schedule is different, the structure is different, sleep is different, how you eat is different. That's just a reality. Your kids are going to have more big feelings, more meltdowns. So if you normalize that, if you think, okay, this is normal, nothing's wrong, that's your first turnaround. The second is my job is to help my child manage this emotion, not to try to fix it or get out of this emotion. Now, obviously, sometimes you need to like do a well-timed snack or a distraction or any of those sort of, parenting tricks. That's fine. Like the new thing where you yell Jessica or whatever when a kid is having a meltdown. I'm not against having distraction because sometimes we just have to like shift their mood. I want you to not feel that you are a bad mom or that something has gone wrong when your kid has a meltdown. I want you to feel like it's normal and you can handle it and they can handle it and that there's no problem. Okay, grumpy moods. I also want to normalize that grumpy moods don't always have to have an explanation of why your kid is in a grumpy mood, nor do you have to create a solution. So sometimes kids are grumpy. Sometimes I'm grumpy. Sometimes you're grumpy. Sometimes it has to do with something going on. Other times it's just kind of like we're in a funk, and that's okay. And I think sometimes when our kids are in a grumpy mood, we make it seem like they're depressed or I've done something wrong or they're not liked at school or they're going to grow up to be a bad kid or be unliked or something like that. And really, grumpy moods just, happen and you can just wait for them to pass. Okay, then other thing that happens a lot is boredom. So we have meltdowns, we have grumpy moods, we have boredom. When your kid says, I'm bored, a lot of us have an instinct to offer a solution, right? We kind of see ourselves as like camp counselors, especially in the summer. And I want you to hold that instinct back. I want you to avoid jumping right in when your kid is bored and letting them struggle a little bit. You can say, yeah, boredom is normal. That's okay. It's okay to be bored. I think you can handle it. I'm not worried about you. I'm pretty sure you can figure this one out. So boredom, it's an on-ramp. if you want to think of it like an on-ramp to creativity and to self-direction. If you kind of smooth it over all the time with like, you know, well-timed TV, well-timed snack, well-timed activity, if you run your home like a preschool or, a summer camp, your child is missing the opportunity of being in that boredom, being in that discomfort, and then getting to the other side of it and finding an activity, finding something that's satisfying so that they can kind of get into that activity or that time of play. So don't be afraid of boredom. Don't try to fix boredom. Try to normalize it as much as you can. And what happens is your kids will eventually get to the point where they may genuinely want you to give them some ideas. So if you let them struggle a little bit and let them get to the end of their discomfort around boredom, they may be ready to pivot. So if you offer, hey, do you want to go outside and collect some rocks and paint them or something like that? Or do you want to sit and read a book with me? Or I'm happy to play tic-tac-toe with you. Some sort of activity that, or you can offer them an idea like, why don't you go do a stuffed animal party? Or, why don't I have a big box from a delivery? You can paint it and make a little house for yourself. Like, you probably have good ideas as a parent, but try not to rush into those ideas until your child seems really over the discomfort of the boredom and they're ready for your solution. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is arguing. If you have more than one child in your family, sibling conflict is inevitable. It is not evidence that your kids don't like each other, that there is, some major problem in your family. That I don't want you to be thinking that anything has gone wrong because your kids argue or fight a lot. Now, of course, I want your kids to be safe. I want them to learn how to be in relationship with each other. That's the whole point of being not the whole point of having a sibling, but it is a major benefit of having a sibling is that you learn to negotiate, advocate for yourself, repair with someone if, you've hurt them, that this relationship that your kids have is actually very good for them. But if you are constantly intervening, you may be taking that idea, that opportunity away from them, and they might not be able to, and they may not be getting the benefit of having a sibling. So, what I want you to think about is that what I'm actually asking you to do is less. So, I think that should be encouraging. Instead of trying to do more this summer, I want you to think about being able to do less this summer. I want you to intervene less, referee less, solve problems less, plan less. If you are really out of bounds in your family and you're feeling really kind of that your family is really overwhelmed and overstimulated, that happens a lot, especially this last week of July, these last 2 weeks of July. That's the time to set up some boundaries, put some kids to bed early, get back to maybe less dessert, less sweets, less activity, and rein it in a little bit. Create kind of a container for that nervous system so that it gets a little bit boundaried and isn't so out of bounds. So if you're starting to feel like your family's out of bounds, I do want you to set up some structure and get back to some of your old routines. But I don't want you to feel like you have to plan more activities or do more problem solving. So your job this summer and all the time is to not make things picture perfect, right? Your job is to be that steady, warm presence in your children's life, that you are there to help them. Instead of smooth everything out, I want you to help them build the skills and tools that they need in order to grow up to be resilient. And you can do that by not making everything perfect. You can do that by not problem solving or pre-problem solving or over functioning or overthinking everything. That in reality, your child needs a little bit less planning. Now, practically, when the guilt shows up, if you notice yourself thinking like, I should have prevented this, or I should have done something better, shoot, I missed this cue, I didn't pay attention, Instead of beating yourself up about that, that's your cue to offer yourself some compassion and let yourself know, like, summer is hard. I've been at this for several weeks. This is way more time as a family that we're used to. This is way more time that my the kids are spending together. This is just a lot of time. There's a lot of friction. We have been outside of our routine, outside of our structure, and all of this is normal. So giving yourself a dose of compassion and normalizing the struggle will help you feel less guilty. And you can also sell yourself on the idea that conflict is good, boredom is good, friction is good. It doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. It actually means that you're doing the job that you need to do, which is to create a little bit of struggle for your kids. You don't actually need to create it. It just is inevitable. What I want you to do is stop preventing all of that struggle. So here's what I want you to take away from this. As I've been saying, meltdowns, grumpy moods, boredom, arguments, they're not signs that you're failing at summer. They're signs that summer is exactly mixed, imperfect, and supporting your children in their development. Your job has never been to engineer a friction-free childhood, to make your kid's childhood perfect or problem-free. I know you want to trauma-proof your kids, right? You don't want them to experience trauma, and I get that. But discomfort is not traumatic. Boredom is not traumatic. Having disappointment is not traumatic. So this week, would love to invite you to think about a good enough summer and normalize that for yourself. Like, what would it look like to be a good enough summer? And look back at the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and ask yourself, has this been a good enough summer? Can I get myself off the hook? Can I take the pressure off of me? I would love to see you take the pressure off of yourself and create a good enough summer and be a good enough mother, which I know you are because you're listening to this podcast. You're taking time to grow as a parent, to connect with your kids, to overcome your own trauma, to set boundaries, to follow through on those boundaries. All of the things that are in the connected parenting process, I know you are taking them seriously. You're doing them. And I want you to give yourself a lot of credit and remind yourself that nothing has gone wrong if my kids are unhappy. That actually probably something is going right. All right. I hope you have a great week and I will talk to you next time. Happy summer. Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.